Have you ever looked into the eyes of an animal and felt something beyond words? Something almost divine? A connection so deep, it felt as if your souls recognized each other? Many people believe that when an animal dies, that's the end. But what if I told you that the bond you share with them is far more eternal than you ever imagined? What if I told you that beyond this world, there's a place where love, true unbreakable love, never fades, not even between man and beast? What I am about to share is not just a story. It is a revelation, one that will challenge everything you thought you knew about animals, their purpose in our lives, and what happens to them after death. A mysterious encounter, a journey beyond the veil of this world, a truth hidden in plain sight, and a message from Jesus himself that will shake you to your core. This is a story you will never forget. Before we dive in, I'd love your support. It's completely free. Drop a comment, letting me know where you're tuning in from. Seeing how we're connected across the world reminds us that we're all part of one big family. Let's begin. My name is Ethan Calloway, and I live in the quiet town of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Nestled by the sea, with its historic harbor and colorful houses, Lunenburg is a kind of place where people know your name and where time moves just a little slower. But for me, life had come to a screeching halt. I wasn't always the kind of man who believed in signs or divine messages. If you'd asked me a few years ago whether animals had souls, I probably would have shrugged. Life was simple. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I kept my faith, but I never gave much thought to what lay beyond. Not until Anna. Anna was my world. My wife, my best friend, the light in every dark corner of my life. She was the one who believed in miracles when I could barely muster the faith to pray. But then, without warning, she was gone. A sudden illness took her from me, and with her, it felt like every ounce of warmth in my life disappeared. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't come in waves like people say, it buries you. I drifted through the days, barely existing, refusing to speak of her, refusing to believe that anything could ever be good again. I stopped going to church. I stopped answering calls. The walls of our home, once filled with laughter, became a shrine to a life I no longer had. That was when he found me. It was the dead of winter, one of those bitter Nova Scotia nights where the wind cuts through your skin like glass. I was walking home from the harbor when I heard it, a faint whimper. At first, I thought it was the wind howling, but then I saw him, a tiny, trembling puppy, barely more than skin and bones, huddled against the frozen pavement near a row of fishing boats. His fur was matted, his ribs showed through his thin coat, and his eyes held the same loneliness I saw in the mirror every morning. I don't know why I did it. I hadn't cared about anything in months, but something inside me refused to leave him there. So I scooped him up, tucking his shivering body inside my coat, and carried him home. I named him Finn. I told myself I'd just keep him until I found someone else to take him. I wasn't in the right state of mind to care for a dog. And besides, what did I know about raising one? But Finn had other plans. He followed me everywhere, every morning. He sat by the door, tail thumping, waiting for me to wake up. At night, he curled up beside me, as if keeping watch over my grief. He never asked for anything except to be near me. And for the first time since Anna died, I didn't feel so alone. At first, I resisted. I told myself not to get attached. I convinced myself that Finn was just a distraction, a temporary guest in my broken life. But the truth was, he was healing me in ways I didn't understand. One evening, I sat on the porch, staring at the ocean, lost in my own thoughts. Finn trotted up beside me and nudged my hand, looking at me with those big, soulful eyes. And I broke. I wept harder than I ever had before, and Finn just sat there, silent and steady, as if he understood every ounce of pain I was carrying. That's when I started noticing something strange. Finn wasn't just any dog. There were moments, fleeting but undeniable, where it felt like he knew me on a level beyond instinct. He would sit beside Anna's old rocking chair, as if waiting for her. He would stare at the corner of the room, tail wagging, as if he saw something I couldn't. And sometimes when I prayed, he would rest his head on my lap, as if he knew exactly what I was saying. I had no idea then what was coming. I had no idea that my journey with Finn was leading me to a truth beyond this world, a truth that would shake the very foundations of my faith. They say that grief can break a man, but no one ever tells you that it can kill him, too. It had been almost a year since Anna died, and though Finn had become my shadow, my protector, my unexpected salvation, the pain never truly faded. I still carried the weight of my loss like a chain wrapped around my chest. Some nights, I sat awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, asking God why I had taken her. Other nights, I refused to pray at all, afraid of what I might hear in the silence. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late, past midnight, and a storm was howling through Lunenburg. The wind rattled the windows, rain pounded against the glass, and the ocean roared in the distance like a wounded beast. Finn lay curled at my feet as I sat in my armchair, staring into the flickering light of a dying candle. My heart felt heavy, my body weak, as if something was pulling me into a darkness I couldn't escape. Then, without warning, pain struck my chest like a lightning bolt. I gasped, clutching my heart as an unbearable pressure built inside me. My vision blurred, my limbs went numb, and before I could even call for help, the world around me collapsed into blackness. And then I was falling, not like a dream, not like the peaceful drifting of sleep. No, this was a violent, relentless pull, as if invisible hands were dragging me downward into a place I did not recognize. The air grew thick, suffocating, and the further I fell, the more unbearable the heat became. Shadows twisted and writhed around me, voices whispered in tongues I did not understand, and the scent of burning flesh filled my nostrils. I hit the ground hard, but it wasn't ground at all. It was something living, something shifting beneath me like a pit of writhing serpents. The moment I tried to move, screams erupted from the darkness, shrieks so inhuman they sent ice through my veins. I turned, and what I saw made my soul recoil in terror. Before me stretched an endless abyss, filled with figures wailing in agony. Some were reaching upward, their hands clawed at the air as if begging for mercy. Others were chained, twisted into grotesque shapes, their eyes hollow with despair. The stench of sulfur and decay choked me, and I realized with dawning horror where I was. This was hell. And then I saw something that shattered me to my core. Among the tormented souls, I saw animals, dogs, cats, horses, creatures of every kind, crying out in anguish, their suffering just as real as the humans beside them. I saw a small dog, no bigger than Finn, trembling as dark, skeletal figures surrounded it, their hands stretching toward it like vultures circling a dying animal. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be right. I screamed, "No! God, please." A shadow loomed over me, its form shifting like smoke, its presence so thick with malice that I felt my very soul shrinking. And then the darkness spoke. "They do not matter," it whispered. "They were never meant for eternity." A cold dread filled me. Was this the truth? Were animals nothing more than temporary companions, doomed to fade into nothingness? Was Finn, was every creature I had ever loved, destined to be erased from existence? A scream erupted from my throat, but before I could take another breath, a light, blinding, piercing, like the break of dawn after an endless night, a voice, not like the whispering one before, but powerful and full of authority, shattered the darkness. "Enough!" And in that instant, the weight of the abyss lifted, the shadows recoiled. I felt hands, strong, warm, filled with power, grasp me and pull me from the abyss. The unbearable heat of hell faded, and suddenly, I was soaring upward, higher and higher, until the darkness was nothing but a distant speck beneath me. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in that place. I was standing in a field, a vast, endless field that stretched beyond what my eyes could see, filled with golden grass that swayed in a breeze I could not feel. The sky was unlike anything I had ever known, more than blue, more than light. It pulsed with something alive, something sacred. And then I saw him. A figure walked toward me, clothed in robes as white as the purest snow, his presence so radiant that my knees buckled. His face, oh, his face, was both familiar and beyond comprehension, filled with a love so vast that I could barely contain the weight of it. Jesus. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only weep as he placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch sending waves of warmth through me, washing away every fear, every doubt, every ounce of pain I had ever carried. He spoke my name, Ethan. His voice was like the sound of rushing waters, like the echo of eternity itself. And in that moment, I knew he had been with me all along, in my suffering, in my silence, in the nights I thought I was alone. I couldn't hold back the question that burned in my soul. Lord, the animals, why were they there? Why were they suffering? Jesus looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw something deeper than human understanding. A sorrow, a knowing, a truth that I had not been ready for until now. Ethan, he said gently, you are not forsaken, and neither are they. What you saw was a deception. The enemy has twisted many things, even the hearts of men, to believe that my creation does not matter, that they're forgotten. But I tell you this. He raised his hand, and suddenly the golden field shifted, and what I saw next made my heart stop. There, in the distance, were animals, but not as they were in life, weak, sick, or broken. No, these were perfect, glorious, whole. I saw dogs racing across the fields, their tails wagging with uncontainable joy. Birds soared overhead, their songs filling the air like a heavenly melody. Horses galloped freely, their manes flowing like silk. Even the smallest of creatures, rabbits, lambs, even tiny sparrows, were alive with eternal light, unchained by pain, fear, or suffering. And among them, Finn. He stood in on the hilltop, his tail wagging, his golden fur glowing in the light. He looked just as he had in life, but somehow more alive, more radiant, more him. And I knew that this was not a dream. This was not a fantasy. This was a truth beyond what I had ever believed. Jesus knelt beside me, his eyes never leaving mine. They are not gone, Ethan. They are with me. I could barely breathe. But why? Why did you show me that darkness? Because many believe it, he said. Many believe that my love is only for them, that my creation has no place in eternity. But I tell you this, nothing that has been loved is ever lost. Tears blurred my vision. I don't understand. I whispered. I thought they were just here for us, that they didn't have souls, that... Who told you that? Jesus interrupted gently. Did I not say that not even a sparrow falls without my Father knowing? Did I not create them as I created you? Do they not feel love and pain and joy? And do you believe that love simply vanishes? I fell to my knees, overwhelmed. They are here, Jesus continued, because I am a God of restoration. I do not abandon the works of my hands. Everything that was made in love returns to love. Every creature that was cherished finds its place. Every soul, great or small, has purpose. Tell them, he said, tell them that nothing is lost. Tell them that love endures. Tell them that when they grieve, when they cry out in longing for what has been taken, they are not forgotten. And tell them that one day, every tear will be wiped away. Tears streamed down my face. The truth was so simple, so beautiful, and yet so easily ignored. Jesus placed his hand over my heart, and in an instant, I knew I had to share this. The world needed to hear the truth. And then I woke up, gasping. It was the first thing I remember, the desperate, frantic struggle to breathe, like breaking the surface of the ocean after nearly drowning. My chest burned, my limbs were heavy, and a deep chill clung to my skin. I was alive. I blinked against the dim light, my vision slowly sharpening. The night sky stretched above me, stars flickering between shifting clouds. Snowflakes drifted down, landing softly on my face. I could hear the distant crash of the waves below the cliffs, the whisper of the wind moving through the trees. And then I felt him, Finn, his warm, familiar weight press against me. His head rested on my chest. His body curled up tightly beside me, as if he'd been protecting me from something unseen. His fur was damp from the snow, his ears twitching as I stirred. I lifted a trembling hand and ran it through his soft golden coat. He let out a small whimper, then lifted his head, eyes filled with relief. I was back, but I was not the same. The world around me felt different. sharper, more alive than it had ever been before. Every sound, every color, every breath of wind felt charged with meaning, as though I was seeing through new eyes. I had been gone, truly gone, and yet, by the mercy of God, I had returned. I struggled to sit up, my body aching from the cold. The memory of what I had seen, heaven, Jesus, flooded through me, nearly overwhelming my mind. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't some hallucination. I had been shown a truth beyond anything I had ever imagined, and now I had to tell the world. As the years passed, Finn aged slowly but gracefully. His once boundless energy softened into gentle patience. His golden fur, once vibrant, faded to a silvery hue around his muzzle. He no longer raced ahead of me on our morning walks. Instead, he trotted beside me, taking his time, as if savoring every moment. His eyes, though clouded with age, still held the same depth, the same unwavering love. I saw it in the way he watched over me, even as his body grew frail. I saw it in the way he would rest his head on my lap, sighing deeply, content simply to be near me. I saw it in the way he never let me grieve alone, always pressing his warm body against mine in silent comfort. Then one evening, Finn didn't get up. He lay on his favorite rug near the fireplace, his breathing slow and labored. I knelt beside him, my heart tightening as I stroked his soft ears. He looked up at me, his tail giving a weak but familiar wag. Tears blurred my vision. "You've been with me through everything, buddy," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I don't know how to say goodbye." He let out a soft exhale, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. And in that moment, I knew he wasn't afraid. I held him close as he took his final breath, my tears falling into his fur. And though my heart shattered, there was peace in knowing that this was not the end, because I had seen where he was going. I remembered the vision, the endless meadows, the river of crystal, the creatures running free without fear or pain. I had seen Finn there, whole and radiant, his tail wagging with uncontainable joy. And I knew that he was not truly gone. He was waiting. One day, when my time on this earth was over, I would see him again. And when I did, he would come running, just as he always had, ears flopping, eyes shining, his heart full of nothing but love. I buried him beneath the old oak tree in the backyard, the same spot where he loved to lay and watch the world go by. I pressed my hand against the cool earth, my fingers trembling as I whispered, "Run free, Finn. I'll see you soon." And I meant it. Losing Finn left a void in my life. But the vision Jesus had shown me gave me hope. Before my near-death experience, I had never truly considered the spiritual significance of animals. I knew they were God's creation, of course. I knew they were precious. But I had never grasped the depth of their place in his divine plan. Jesus had shown me the truth. Did I not say that not even a sparrow falls without my Father knowing? His words echoed in my mind. Everything that was made in love returns to love. Most people see animals as mere creatures, simple, instinct-driven beings that exist to fill the earth, provide companionship, or serve human needs. But after what I had seen, after what Jesus had revealed to me, I understood something far greater. Animals are not just part of creation. They are messengers of God's love. Many of us go through life unaware of the sacred role they play. We see a stray dog in the street, a bird perched on our window, or even a pet curled up beside us, and we overlook their presence. But in doing so, we miss the whispers of God. The bond between humans and animals is not a coincidence. It is part of God's divine design. Looking back, I realized something that shook me to my core. I didn't save Finn. Finn saved me. That little puppy I had found abandoned in the cold was not just an animal in need. He was a gift from God. And in loving him, in caring for him, I was unknowingly fulfilling a divine purpose. Animals like Finn are entrusted to us, not as burdens, but as blessings. We are called to protect them, to love them, and in doing so, to reflect the very heart of God. Through Scripture, I began to see it more clearly than ever before. Genesis 9, verse 9 to 10. God made a covenant with all living creatures after the flood, not just with mankind. Isaiah 11, verse 6 to 9, a prophecy of the coming kingdom, where the wolf and the lamb lie together, where there is no violence, only peace. Revelation 5, verse 13, a scene of worship in heaven, where every creature in heaven, on earth, and under the earth praises God. And then, of course, there was Job 12, verse 7 to 10. But ask the animals, and they will teach you, or the birds in the sky, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature, and the breath of all mankind. It was all there, written long before I ever understood it. Animals were not just a part of creation. They were cherished by their Creator. And that meant that every dog, every cat, every horse, every tiny sparrow that had ever been loved was not gone. They were waiting. And one day, we would be together again, had been given a second chance. A chance to tell the world that love does not end, that grief is not the final chapter, that the bond between us and our beloved animals is not a fleeting thing, but an eternal promise. I stood before Finn's resting place, the wind moving gently through the leaves above. My heart ached, but it no longer felt empty, because I knew, and now, it was time for the world to know too. They are not lost. They are not forgotten. They are waiting. And one day, we will see them again. If this message speaks to your heart, I urge you to share it. Let the world know that in God's eyes, no creature is insignificant. Every life matters. And every love, even the love of an animal, is eternal.